Okay, do we have up Tuesday tips?
Yes.
That's good to know. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We are glad to see you again with our meeting. And I'm just going to do a couple of things here to find out why I'm not moving. Sharing the screen.
There you go.
There I am. Good, good. Okay, well, you might notice I got a little bit of tan here. We did some hiking last week and had a good time, but it's time to get back to work. And I'm so delighted to have my co-host here, Emily Stanley. She is the one that's been giving you all this marvelous information, how to work your cell phones and everything, so that this enables you to participate in some of our polls. And I'd like to welcome those that have been here in the past. I updated the map just a little bit, but it's great to know that we have participation across the state of Montana. And a special welcome to our AARP folks for joining us, and the Missoula Aging Services participants, because we welcome all who are interested. So as you know, one of the enhancement tools that we use is a poll. And the idea of the poll is just to give you some practice, keep you involved. And I want to know, have you talked with any family member about estate planning? Just curious. And it gives you the opportunity to say yes or no. And don't forget to hit that submit button at the bottom of the page. Well, Emily, I think this is such an easy one. We can see what people are responding with. And so as we take a look, we're seeing a little over half has said yes, they have talked to family members about estate and legacy planning. But we have a percentage that haven't as well. So that's kind of the topic that we've got for today. And as you know, for when I do programs, I like to use wildflowers. And we're right in the middle of wildflower season here in Montana. But let me tell you, not in Utah. Everything that I was seeing, unfortunately, is way past the season. But I like to use these names just to make it a little bit more interesting. And the idea of the names is to help you remember some of the benefits of having this discussion with our family members about legacy and estate planning. And my disclaimer, no wildflowers were picked, stomped, or destroyed by me to make these photographs. And there's an example of a weekend I hope to have soon in Yellowstone of being able to take photographs using my umbrella to keep out the sun so you keep even, and makes it lots of fun. So here's one of the ones I found a couple of years ago in early May. And it has such a clever name because it's the steer's head. And what I want to do is steer you, to ideas about starting a conversation with your family members. Now, those of you, 58%, that have already done that, more power to you. That's great. But maybe you've got some, you want to try something a little bit differently. So what I decided to do for this particular program is share some of the ideas that Montanans have shared with me when I'm traveling the state doing my estate planning programs. And of course, right now, it probably goes without saying, but certainly we've got the issue with the pandemic that we've been having with COVID-19 virus. And I've had more calls, I've had more emails. As a matter of fact, I came home from vacation with 315 emails. So it takes a while to get around to getting all of those answered, because here's an opportunity that society, or however you want to say it, is giving us a good excuse to talk about estate planning. Now, there may be another situation where you've got a family member and the family member has had to go into an assisted living facility, perhaps a nursing home. And that could give you the opportunity to say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, had you heard Aunt Geneva is now in assisted living, and if that happened to you, what would you want us to do about the house? What would you want us to do about some of your possessions? And then this always happens too, is we have a friend or maybe another relative who has wound up in the hospital, and they're going to be there for a while. And so again, it's that, hey, Uncle Harold, is in the hospital. And, it occurs to me that we've never had a talk about what you would like to have done in your situation if you should go in the hospital. And then this is one I still remember from being in one community where I'm sitting at a table and overhearing the conversation that was going on there with the guys that were having coffee. And they were talking about someone in the community who had passed away and that he didn't have a will, and now the kids are fighting, and there's all kinds of, well, you could call that gossip, I guess. But it also shows that people talk, and maybe that's an opportunity to bring up the conversation. And here, this is one. Encourage your parents or others to attend one of our extension estate planning meetings. And I share this one because it was really so funny. This is from Butte, Montana, and we were having a meeting there with the local extension agent. And as you can see, the room was full. And as a matter of fact, it was more than full. We had to turn away about 20 people because the fire marshal limited the number of people in that room. And you can see what some people did. They sat on the floor or they stood up. And it just surprised me that people would be willing to put up with that discomfort for a couple of hours. And sure, I go for an hour, we take a break, have snacks sometimes, then we come back. But what we did for the people that couldn't be there at that time is I volunteered to stay another couple of hours. And so once these folks left, the other folks came in. And what that demonstrated to me is that there's a real interest in estate planning out there. And I can see, you notice most of the audience are what I call the gray hairs now, and that's including me. But there were young folks there too. And it just was very gratifying to see the interest. Another technique is you sharing with your parents, mom or dad. I might have to make some decisions for you someday. And, that's going to be a difficult position to be in. And I don't know what you want. Do you want a funeral? You want a memorial service? Those are kind of some questions that you can utilize to just ease yourself into having this conversation. And it may be kind of funny advertising our own estate planning series here, but we have one that's called Estate Planning the Basics. And this is a series of mock guides that we have packaged in a folder like this, and we charge $10. Now you can download all those mock guides. We have 44 in the estate planning area. But for this, what we wanted to do was give a taste of estate planning and then promise everybody that bought one that we would send them an update, which reminds me I need to do that this summer because we've got some updates that need to be made. But I had one of my individuals that attended a program said what she did is it doesn't do any good to give it to Dad and say, I want you to read this. So what she did was very subtle. She just put it on the coffee table, never said anything about it. And he picked it up, started looking through it, and voila, he was reading the mock guides. And that's why I like to do things in a mock guide approach. It's a topic, it's short, you have a chance to read about it. And if it's a book, well, yeah, you can put in a bookmark, but it gets out of date so quick. And with this, we can update only those mock guides that have changes. I've also proposed that this could be used as a book club. And if you don't have a book club in your community, well, this is the rage in Bozeman. Everybody is having a book club on this topic, that topic. And I would be glad to have you use this packet or a series of several of the mock guides and use them as a book club. And if you're not meeting right now, my book club has been meeting through Skype. And so it gives us a chance to still read the book, communicate with one another about what we thought about it, and you could do this estate planning communication too. And I jokingly told the book club people, hey, I would be glad to appear. I could be the guest speaker for that particular book club meeting. Now, how about a legacy jar? I came up with this as an idea, so I'll claim the goodness or badness of it. But I was in one of those scrapbooking stores and I saw they had all of these really neat things, and I decided to make a legacy jar. So I've carried that around with my presentations for the past couple of years. And what I did in the inside then is at the website for this program, I have a link for you to go to the top 10 estate planning actions. And what you do is you cut those up and put them in the jar. Then the idea of the jar is you can use that as a gift. Now you're probably thinking, Marcia, getting is crazy. No, this really could be a unique gift for someone, particularly somebody that has everything. A birthday, a holiday. I jokingly was giving a program on Valentine's Day and asked people, why wouldn't you appreciate something like this? And I didn't get what I call a positive response, but still the idea is that it might be a technique. And the technique might work with the family member that you're giving it to. And I didn't even list here, but several folks that I know have had children recently. They're cute little babies. And I thought, I should come up with something like that for them because I want them to name a guardian for that little one. I want them to name a conservator, or at least, get that conversation going with the spouse so that they can determine, gee, if they're out driving around, they have a car accident, something awful happens, they have someone that they've nominated to take care of that new one. Now, we also have, you may have seen in the list, we have talking with aging parents about finances. So if you haven't checked with our site for this program, do so after today, and we will have that particular mod guide there. There's additional information in there talking about how to, sort of broach the topic, techniques for the conversation, and I think you would find it very good. Now, I've also had some parents visit with me, and they say, look, I have tried to bring up this issue several times. And what happens with my kids is they say, Mom, you don't have cancer, do you? Or is something wrong? No, what we're just trying, so they're saying, hey, you need to do a monk guide that is having a conversation with your children about estate planning. And so I did add kind of a little paragraph in there that indicates it could be used either way. The idea is get the conversation going. Now, another technique that could be used is how about your preferences? If you had yourself a serious illness, maybe that's an opportunity to share. And I know I did this with my parents. I was trying different kinds of techniques with them. And I just shared that, I've got my arrangements made, that I want to be cremated. And oh, my dad, he just said, oh, no. He could never do that. And I thought it was such a strong reaction. My dad wasn't usually that way. And what he did was share with me that when he was in World War II and they were in the Philippines, one of the airplanes crashed and burned. And he said, you will never, ever forget the smell of burning bodies. And so he was just absolutely opposed to cremation. So we did what everybody else does in Southwest Kansas. We buried him, and then when Mom passed, we buried Mom next to him. The other thing is maybe you need to talk with some other people that know your folks. It could be someone like an attorney. It could be the accountant. Just, throwing in that, okay, now, have you got that living will? Do you have a power of attorney? And how about a regular will? Do you have that done? And that might start the conversation going with some folks. So, we do have a chat room. And in the chat room, we have the opportunity for you then to share a technique you would like to try with your parents or grandparents. And those 58% of you that have already had that conversation, could you just very quickly share a technique that worked for you to have that conversation. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time here so that you can do that and share those. And then what Emily will do is share some of those with the group. Well, Emily, does it look like we're going to get any responses? I want to give people plenty of time, but I just want to make, if everybody's not doing anything, we'll move on.
We haven't had a lot so far, but we have, so there's one that said when their father died, it spurred their mom to do some things with estate planning. Somebody just says they think having a conversation, sharing the Mont guides, maybe sort of the subtle approach. Someone says a straightforward discussion is what they would prefer. Kind of all over the board, and I think that's good because it looks like people are picking the options that seem like they would work best for their family.
Yeah, and that's where every family is so different, and we're going to get into a little bit more of that as well. But go ahead and continue to share some ideas, and we'll have Emily share those a little bit as we draw closer to the end of this session. So I'd like to have you take a look at a few things and think about what do the following have in common. Well, here we have an orange hawkweed. Here we have a hound's tongue. How about a butter and eggs or a yellow toadflax? That's the thing with common names. You get some, and there is a difference, yes, I know, between buttered eggs and toadflax by the leaves. And this is the one and only I've ever seen of this particular one was a Western Salsify and St. John's wort. So I was saying, well, what do all of these have in common? Well, I thought they were very pretty little flowers. And Jane Mangold, who is with Extension, said, Marcia, these are noxious weeds in Montana. You don't want to see those out in your fields. And I go, oh, I didn't realize that. I thought they were pretty. So she said, what happens when people have the discovery of this on their land, they survey the invasion, and what they're going to do is determine how bad it is, and they're going to decide on the best tools to control the weeds. So I decided we could do the same thing with our estate planning, that maybe we can swing into action and organize a family meeting. Yes, there's times to do one-on-one with mom and dad, but there may also be the situation where this is really an issue that's family. That means brothers and sisters, sometimes even grandchildren. So if we're going to swing into action, first of all, what type of meeting? And it used to be obvious. Well, we're going to meet in person. Well, if nothing else, the last few months have shown us maybe we would have a creative opportunity to meet via the computer. Maybe we would do Skype, the GoToMeeting. There's a lot of them out there. And that might be a way to pull in those family members that quite frankly can't afford to make a trip to Montana. You know, and the situation is right now they can't anyway. And here's mom and dad wanting to make some decisions because this is the issue that's brought it to head, and by gum, they're going to get something done. Then there's the decision about which of the family members are going to take the lead. And it might be the parents that are saying, we need to get this done. It could be the adult children are pushing for, let's just know, let's have some discussion about what it is. And then the adult grandchildren. Maybe there's some of those out there. And I've certainly ran into those at some of my young ag couples conference in Helena and other groups where we've got adult grandchildren that are now in their late 20s, 30s, and they really don't know where they stand with the business, whether it's a downtown business or also a farm or ranch business. And then the real challenge, and this is so difficult. I've tried doing some of these, so I appreciate the difficulty, is who's going to facilitate the meeting. Now, some people would say, well, it's obvious the parent should be the one, but maybe the parent is not the best for facilitation. You know, sometimes dad puts his hand down on the table and everybody knows, okay, that's the end of that topic, we're going to move on to something else. And maybe it's worth having a paid facilitator, someone in the community, and I bet every community has one, that is really good about working with family members, getting them to talk, getting some to, it's not your turn to talk, you don't have the stick, or whatever method is appropriate. And I know that in some communities, a local minister has had facilitator kind of training. Okay, so those are just some ideas there. And then we've got to determine when and where the meeting is going to be. You know, when is a challenge, because when do we have everybody together? And where? Well, it kind of gets often to the stage, and I know it happened with my folks, where they really didn't travel anymore. So it meant we would go to Kansas, and it meant my sister would come from North Dakota, and then my other sister from eastern Kansas to meet with and have a holiday, for example. But one of the things I read is you really should avoid emotionally demanding family times. And while I accept that, I also realize, oh my goodness, sometimes that's the only time we're all together. And, you know, once a year maybe, or once every 2 years. So it could be you're just going to have to take advantage of that. And then the rule for the kids is, of course, we've got to respect the parents' need for some privacy in some of the specifics about their financial resources. You know, we don't need to know the balance in the checking account. We don't need to know the asset base unless we're in a farm ranch operation. And then who should be present? Oh, what a $1 million question. You know, should the in-laws be there? And you will have some parents that will say no. They draw the line. We have others that said, my goodness, she's been my daughter-in-law for 30 years. Of course she should be there. I also hear family members say, oh, we don't want George. If he's there, he'll just interrupt the meeting. Well, the question would be, if George is left out, how much interruption of lives is going to occur later, and also the resentment that that person was left out. And then I would also, again, say the adult grandchildren. I'm not saying those that are 15 years old need to be involved. But again, if we've got a farm ranch operation, we're talking about what's that going to be, what's the history of that going to be. We need to have those players involved. So this was a challenge, Emily. I'm interested in seeing how you handled these questions. Have you held a family meeting with your parents? And how about your in-laws? Ah, you did too. Great.
Yeah, so when you're answering those questions, be sure to scroll down because there will be 2 of them there. So make sure you don't miss those. But they're pretty easy, I figured, because they're just yes or no.
Yes. Have you had a family meeting with your parents? You know, an official one where other family members are involved, just more than you. And have you, if appropriate, have you had a family meeting with your in-laws? Don't forget to hit submit. And those of you that this doesn't apply to, you can also do NA. Okay, Emily, what have we got here? Okay, so 26% have had, and with the in-laws, much smaller percent. And that's not a bit surprising given, you know, the situation. So here's another one. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being high, how about you rank how well your meeting went with your parents, and also on a scale of 1 to 5, rank how well your meeting went with your in-laws. Okay, Emily, I'm going to have you give us the responses here. Okay, looks like, well, at least 13% that it went fairly well. We've got some it doesn't apply to because you haven't had that meeting. And then as we look at the in-laws here, so let's see, a smaller percent. Some said it was 3. So, okay. So to have a successful meeting, let's prepare ourselves emotionally because, for some people, it is difficult to talk about dying, quite frankly. That's why I like to think of it as financial planning. We're going to live. We're going to make sure we got our finances together, and then when we're gone, the people that we want to receive it. So just prepare yourself emotionally. You may think, oh, you're not going to cry, and then, oops, somebody says something, and there you go, and you get embarrassed, and then that embarrasses other people. So let's just prepare for it. Hey, what we're doing is financial planning. And I think it's very important. Let's have a note taker. What we want is somebody that's good at taking notes, and they will share those notes with the rest, because your memory and somebody else's memory of what went on could be totally different. So what we do is we treat it like a meeting. We have a person that takes the minutes, and then we share the minutes, and if there's some parts that are wrong, we correct that. And then we need to be able to say that we want to have a good meeting here. We want family members to be respectful. We want to listen to the concerns of the people that are there. And of course, we don't want to do the you business. We need to say I'm upset, or I have a concern about. It's not you should be doing this. We know we don't like to be talked to that way, so let's take care of that. And so we've got some discussion points that I think might be helpful for you in that publication, Talking with Aging Parents About Finances. So go to the site for that. And the reflection from the hound's tongue is to say also, don't hound your parents. Get it? Okay. Monkey flowers. Okay. I would say don't monkey around. Make this transition building for the next generation a priority for the family. And here I'm going to talk just a little bit closer to the farm ranch folks, because Neil Harrell was a researcher in Iowa, and he says he saw a little transition building between the generations in his state, and that fewer than 1/3 of the farms survived to the second generation, and fewer than 15% survived to the third. In Minnesota, they said there's just a lack of communication between the families, or among, in some cases, as far as expectations and assumptions. So what's another way? Well, we do have a publication for those farm ranch people that's called Transferring Your Farm or Ranch to the Next Generation. And what it is combining the legal, economic, and social aspects of planning. And we have a whole section that talks about discovering expectations. Which children intend to operate the ranch or the farm? It's a good question. What about non-ranching children, those that are out of state? What kind of involvement are they going to have? So what we did was divide the publication up into older generation questions and younger generation questions. And I like to have people break up into groups when I'm doing a meeting and have the older ones over here and the younger ones over there, and have them realize and then share afterwards the differences. So there's an opportunity to make a list of concerns as the younger generation and then select the most important one. And the older generation could do the same thing. So you see, the idea is we have the younger generation talk among themselves, the older generation, and then that's when we have the time for the family meeting, because then they're aware of one another's concerns. And the concern that this was a specific research project, the older generation was most concerned about their kids getting a divorce. Maybe not what you would have anticipated, but it is. And when we asked about the younger generation, what is your major concern about parents? Alzheimer's and dementia. And certainly I can share that concern, having lived through that. So identifying what's important, I think this publication would be a great resource, even if you are not a farm ranch business. If you were one that has got a downtown business or, a hobby kind of thing where people are working together. And then there's categories about how we do some of these things. Security for both generations. How can we make sure that mom and dad can make a living if they sell the farm or ranch to the kids? Will there be the income? And right now there's just so much uncertainty, but you can try to work through the process anyway. So the neat thing is on the questions, for example, if you circle 5, it's very important, and your spouse circles 0, well, that's a conversation you two need to have before you get to the kids. And I've also found that there's some good blogs out there for ideas. And Elaine is someone that I have seen do several meetings in Montana. And you want to talk about a farm girl that has down to earth. She has great articles that she writes every week. And they always start with 10 tips of this, 5 tips for that. And I think they're excellent. So I would suggest that you read those and share those with some of your family members. So my reflection from the monkey flower is don't monkey around. Complete some of those workshops and help yourself understand you as you do the estate planning. Well, my observation for the lady slipper is, once again, time goes so fast when you only have 30 minutes. And if you don't have a memory like this elephant's head, what we want you to do is take advantage of our Mont guys. Those are your taxpayer dollars at work. We have those available for Montanans. And I've got 5 right now that are at our Office of Communication Services, so that those will be available when we start the fall. And don't forget, some of these are available also from your county extension or reservation office. Well, Emily and I really appreciate the participation and seeing you. I wish I could see more of you during our webinars. And we hope to see you in the future as we are holding discussions, and we will use the evaluations that you've given us to take a look at what other topics would you like to have, etc. So I think Emily has some thoughts to share with you, she'll have a poll and you'll have a chance to fill that out. And then I just can't resist this very last one, and our president always ends meetings with this, go cats go. We're certainly hoping that all the cats will be on campus this fall, and we look forward to seeing you again whenever that opportunity arrives. Okay, we'll get to questions.
Yeah. Do you want to stop sharing?
Right.
See your face full screen. So I've opened a poll that should come up in the side of your screen. This is just our final evaluation of the program. Those of you who have joined us every week have seen there are similar questions that we're asking. We just want to know what you thought of the program, what ideas you might have gained from the program. And then you'll notice at the top there's still a question that asks you to type your email. Of course, we don't have any more Tuesday tips dates planned right now, but if you would like to be on a mailing list for future estate planning educational opportunities, you can put your email there and we'll be sure to keep you on our list. And again, none of that is shared outside of our Tuesday tips team, Marcia and myself. So all of that's completely confidential. And I guess while folks are answering, Marcia, do you want me to go back and look through some of the ideas that people had for how to get?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, because sometimes when we want to do something, just like extension, we adapt things that other people have done, and maybe you've got a great idea that I didn't think of, could add to the program for a future reference. So Emily, what other ideas did they have?
Okay, so we left off, I think, on someone mentioning just having a straightforward discussion. Somebody said, go through my mom, because she's really receptive to this and she's able to get through to my dad. Handing my husband power of attorney forms and just telling him we need to start planning. This person said, I just called all my adult children, told them about this class, and tomorrow we are having a Zoom meeting about this in my estate planning. All
right, good for you. That is just wonderful. The kids will thank you, and I tell you, you'll have such a relief of having it done. Even myself, when I got everything updated, I was going, oh, now I can be out driving around. Well, my goodness, I haven't driven practically since March because that's when we ended all of our meetings. So great ideas. Thank you.
Another one, somebody said, for my family, we decided to sit down together and we had a discussion. This occurred after helping my grandfather recover from a stroke. Again, one of those sort of triggering events. A couple more people are saying they're meeting via Zoom. Someone said, we tried to discuss this years ago, but I felt kind of attacked by my children and their spouses, so now we're trying again when my children are older.
Yeah. And yeah, we try to tell the kids, don't just, oh, here's my turkey bone, and by the way, have you thought about dying? It's sometimes kids can be overly concerned, and maybe they don't know how to express it. So I'm glad you're giving it another chance, because I think you'll find some maturity does make a difference. No offense, Emily. Okay.
That's okay. Another person said, I've gotten the idea from this session to have a meeting with my brothers and my mom on estate planning, on any of the estate planning that my mom has already done, just so we can get comments and questions and be familiar with what the plan is. So,
that's great.
And then we have some questions that have come up.
Okay.
Okay. One of them, how can we find out when new Mont guides are released?
Oh, that is a challenge. Typically what happens is communication services, like me, when I do a Mont guide, like when we finally get our transfer on death deed, I will do a news release, and that will be one method. At my website, we also have an opportunity where my assistant goes in and she puts new on it, so that you know that, hey, if you've got the old version called beneficiary deeds, well, it's now called transfer on death deeds. And Emily, what do you do as an agent then to let people know about new Mont guides?
Yeah, so something, it depends a little bit on the extension office, but for me, I have sort of an email newsletter that I send out once or twice a month to let people know about things that are going on, whether that's classes, whether it's new resources that have come through our office. And again, that kind of varies from extension office to extension office, but it's probably worth reaching out to your local extension agent to see if you can get on any kind of email list that they have, because I usually include a section that's here's new resources that have come from MSU that include things like new Mont guides and information.
Yeah, and originally with our packet, it was, and we still do, but we did that years ago, and now I would have asked for everybody's email so that I could send out to them, here's some new ones. Now we do a letter out to everybody that's purchased that in the past, and we give them the opportunity to just download them themselves. But I also know there's folks out there that don't have a computer, they don't have reliable internet service, they can't get their printer to work, and so they call me. So if you do have a concern about that and wonder if there's some new ones, I've had people just email me and say, hey, Marcia, I met you at a meeting. Would you let me know, have you done anything lately? And I've always got Mont guides in the works. For example, we have one on life estates, but I've been receiving questions about, well, what if I have a life estate and I have to go into the nursing home? Can I sell my life estate? And other questions that I didn't have answers for. So I've been investigating that, and so we're going to expand that particular Mont guide to include that information.
Just for folks, I put the link to the publications that are on Marcia's estate planning website, so you can go take a look at that and see what's there, and you'll notice that some of them have that new or revised mark next to them that show which ones have been updated or are brand new. And if you, for some reason, lose that link, it's really pretty easy to find if you type in MSU Extension Estate Planning or Montana State University Estate Planning. It should take you right to that web page. Another question that someone asked is how do I get a Mont Guide mailed to me? Do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, we also have a distribution center, and that distribution center does mail out any of our publications, and they're available without charge for a certain number, and then, you know, like if you order 100, there would be a charge to that, and I'm not familiar with all of those. But if you would Google extension publications or extension distribution, then they have those where you can order them or even download them if you want to. I just kind of like my site because I'm familiar with it, and I have a list of all 44 that we have. But don't forget, you may have nieces and nephews or grandkids that have access to a computer, and they can print these out for you as well. Because, you know, it's not easy to find the extension office sometimes. For example, if you're in Billings, it's a little more challenging to find a parking place and get there. So just email me if you need some too. Be glad to help you out.
Yeah, and I would also say too that in our extension office, our area has quite a few people who also don't have access to the internet or access to a printer. So sometimes we have people call and ask, do you have information on writing a will? Do you have information on TODs and PODs? And we can, our office at least has always been happy to just print those off and mail them to you. So I think most extension offices are able to do that. So you can always just call them as well.
Yeah, and we also have local people sometimes teaching a class, and or a high school teacher that wants to use some of these in her classroom. And so all they have to do is let us know, and if they want 20 copies, we can do that, and same way with Emily. So the idea is, like I said, these are your taxpayer dollars at work. Thank you very much, and we'll make that information available to you.
Okay, another question. Is there a site where I can get a schedule of your in-person presentations, Marcia?
Yes, I have an estate planning website. I can tell, Emily, you're probably looking that up and can find it quicker than I can. And at that, my secretary puts a list of where I'm going to be. And right now, you won't find anything there because we don't have anything scheduled in September. I mean, we're still figuring out how we're going to do some of this and whether or not webinars or we can get together and be 6 feet apart. Just not sure. But that's where the information will be listed of where I'll be. You know, if I was coming to Lewistown, it would have the time and it would have the location once I know all that information.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions come up right now. One thing I will say is that as with all of our sessions, this one has been recorded. So if you know somebody who would like this information but wasn't able to join, you can certainly direct them to the Tuesday Tips website where they can find recordings of all the past webinars that we've done, and I'll put that website in the chat here as well. And they can just watch those. I think most all of them are uploaded onto YouTube, so it's pretty easy to just play through. They can also see all of the questions, or the question session as well. They can't read them, but they can hear the answers that we've given. So, did you have anything else that you wanted to add, Marcia? I don't see any more questions coming up right now.
Okay, well, I really would encourage you to share with us topics that you would like to have. Of course, I have a list of what I think would be good based on programs that I've presented in the past. And even if you have an idea 3 weeks from now and say, hey, had you thought about doing a program on X? Just go ahead and send that, and we'll see what we can put together. I kind of finally got used to this method where I look at the camera for a change, and I think it holds some potential. It's not the only way. I miss getting to see you all face to face, and I'm looking forward to be able to return to that. But until we can, this is a way to educate. So I want you all to be safe. keep healthy so that we can see you sometime in the future. Bye.
We have one more question come up during that, which is fine. Someone said, what were those preliminary ideas to start the meetings on a positive, supportive basis? So I think they were just wanting you to review a couple of the suggestions you had at the very beginning of the presentation of how to get the conversation started at all.
Yeah, those were some of the examples that you will find in talking with your aging parents about finances, that mock guide. But, you know, the idea that you could use somebody being sick, being moved into a nursing home, certainly this COVID crisis, this is the teachable moment. You know, finally, we've got people that are interested in healthcare powers of attorney. We've got folks that want to do a financial power of attorney. And Extension does have both of those. I'm just so relieved we got the healthcare power one done because this is the time. And we have the resources, so take advantage of that. And email me again. I don't want 315 again, but I'll get to them and be able to answer and visit with you. And again, thank you, and keep in touch.
Yeah. All right, thanks everybody. I see that some of you have put in suggestions in the chat for future programs, and I will make sure that we note those so that we have those, and we'll definitely look at those in the future. So thank you all again. Have a great summer.
Okay, enjoy Montana. It's green here, not like Utah. Ooh, bye-bye.